You have never once in your entire life watched yourself fall asleep. Think about that for a second. You remember lying down. You remember the ceiling, the weight of the blanket, maybe the last thought you had before your mind went quiet. And then, nothing. No transition, no door slowly closing, just a hard jump cut from awake to morning. Your brain didn't lose that memory by accident. It erased it on purpose. And here's the part that should actually unsettle you. That exact erasing mechanism doesn't only happen at night. It happens during the day too, when you're stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally flooded. Psychologists have a name for it. It's called dissociation. And by the end of this video, you're going to recognize it happening in your own life, in places you never expected. Let's start with what you already know, because you've lived it thousands of times. Every single night, your brain performs a disappearing act. You lie down. Your thoughts get looser, stranger, less connected to each other. Maybe you notice a flash of an image, a random word that means nothing, a sudden falling sensation that jolts you slightly. And then your conscious narrator, the you that's been running the whole day, making decisions, holding conversations, keeping track of time, simply stops recording. You don't experience yourself falling asleep. You only ever experience the aftermath of it. In early 2026, researchers using real-time brain imaging confirmed something remarkable about this process. As you drift towards sleep, a specific electrical pattern called a sleep spindle sweeps through the hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for turning experience into memory, and it deliberately powers that region down, not gradually fading the way a light dims, powering down, almost like a switch being flipped. In other words, your brain isn't failing to record the moment you fall asleep. It is actively choosing not to. It closes the gate on memory formation on purpose at a precise, identifiable moment. And it does this every single night of your life without ever asking your permission. Here's why this matters more than it seems. What you're describing when you say, "I can't remember falling asleep," is not a storage failure, like a photo that got corrupted on your phone. It's a gate that closed in real time. Nothing went in because your brain decided nothing should go in. That should sound familiar because your brain has this exact same kill switch for one other situation: overwhelming input. When your nervous system decides that a moment is too much to process, too painful, too fast, too emotionally loud, it can trigger the same kind of gate. Attention narrows sharply. The hippocampus goes quiet. Stress hormones like cortisol, at high enough levels, actually interfere with the biological process your brain uses to consolidate short-term memory into long-term memory. And so the experience passes through you without ever being fully written down. Psychologists call this dissociation, and it explains a lot more of your daily life than you'd expect. Have you ever had a conversation during a fight and afterward couldn't remember half of what was said? Sat through a stressful meeting and realized you'd been staring at the same slide for 10 minutes with no memory of the content? Driven home on autopilot after a brutal day and arrived with almost zero memory of the actual drive? That's the same mechanism. Your brain is not broken in those moments. It is doing, in daylight, the exact thing it does every night when you fall asleep, deciding that recording this moment in full detail is not worth the cost and shutting the gate. This isn't a design flaw. It's protection. Memory formation is expensive. Every experience your hippocampus fully encodes takes energy, attention, and neural resources your brain could be spending elsewhere. So your nervous system is constantly running an unconscious calculation in the background. Is this moment worth remembering in full detail? Or not? At the edge of sleep, the answer is no. There's nothing new or useful happening in the outside world anymore. So the brain closes the gate and redirects those resources towards something more important: consolidating the memories you already made earlier that day. This is actually one of the core jobs of sleep itself. While you're unconscious, your brain is replaying and strengthening the experiences from your waking hours, deciding what gets filed away as long-term memory and what gets quietly discarded. Under extreme stress, the calculation is different, but the outcome is strikingly similar. The brain decides, this is too much, too fast, too painful. Encoding it in vivid, high-resolution detail would do more harm than good, so it protects you the only way it knows how. It dims the recording. That's why people who've been through genuinely difficult or traumatic events often describe the memory as foggy, fragmented, or missing entirely. Not because nothing happened, but because their brain made the same decision it makes every night at 11 p.m. This doesn't need to be fully remembered in order to be survived. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. If this mechanism can be triggered by mild, everyday stress, a bad conversation, a boring meeting, a long drive, it means dissociation isn't some rare clinical event that only happens to people with a diagnosed disorder. It exists on a spectrum, and you are almost certainly living somewhere on that spectrum right now more often than you realize. If you regularly find yourself checking out during hard conversations, losing track of time while scrolling your phone, going numb instead of feeling an emotion all the way through, or realizing you've been physically present but mentally absent for an entire hour, that's not you being lazy, distracted, or broken. That is the exact same neurological gate that closes every night when you fall asleep, just triggered by something other than sleepiness. Even something as ordinary as highway hypnosis fits this pattern. Driving for 20 minutes on a familiar road with no memory of the turns you took. Your brain didn't stop functioning. It simply decided the moment wasn't worth fully encoding and quietly handed the wheel over to a part of you that runs on autopilot. The unsettling truth is this: forgetting isn't always something that happens to you. Sometimes it's something your brain is doing for you. A decision made below the level of conscious choice, every single day, far more often than you'd ever guess. So what do you actually do with this? First, stop pathologizing your own gaps. If you can't remember a stressful conversation in full, that's not a character flaw or a sign that something is wrong with your memory. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do. Simply knowing the mechanism takes away a surprising amount of the shame that usually comes with it. Second, treat checking out as information, not just an inconvenience to brush past. If you notice yourself dissociating in a specific type of moment, a certain kind of conflict, a certain kind of pressure, a certain person's tone of voice, your brain is telling you, in the clearest language it has, that something there feels like too much to process in real time. That pattern is worth paying attention to, not ignoring. And third, the same way you can't force yourself to consciously watch yourself fall asleep, you can't force yourself out of dissociation through sheer willpower in the moment it's happening. What actually works is building safety back into your nervous system before the gate closes. Slowing your breathing. Naming what you're feeling out loud, even quietly to yourself. Grounding yourself in something physical. The texture of a chair, the temperature of the air, the sound of your own feet on the floor. You're not trying to outsmart the mechanism. You're trying to convince your brain in advance that it's safe enough to keep the gate open a little longer. You will never remember the exact moment you fall asleep tonight. That part of you is permanently, biologically off limits, no matter how closely you pay attention. But the version of this that shows up during the day, the checking out, the numbness, the missing time, that part isn't off limits at all. Once you can name it, you can start working with it instead of quietly being run by it. Your mind has been editing your own story your whole life, cutting scenes it decided you didn't need to see in full. The goal was never to fight that instinct. It's to finally understand the editor. If this made you rethink a moment you thought you'd just forgotten, that's the point. Subscribe to the Unbecoming, because the mind hides more from you than you think. And next week, we're taking it apart again.